Hi. This is a little bit different for me. I just got back from seeing Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, and I think it might be one of the best films I have ever seen. Maybe the best film I have seen this year. I haven't quite decided on that, but it's certainly up there. Um, and I just want to talk about it. I haven't written a script. I do have, let me bring those up. I do have notes, but this is completely unscripted. This isn't really a video essay. I think after the third film comes out, I might sit down and write a full video essay and, actually get to reading the Spider-Verse comics that I have, because I have them and I haven't finished them. I've read these two, and that's it. But right now, I just want to ramble a little bit, maybe even gush about how incredible this film was, because it was it was amazing. There's going to be lots of spoilers, by the way. I'm recording this about an hour after I've seen the film, but I'm not going to release it for another week or so. But you might still not have seen the film. Plenty of people haven't seen the film. I still haven't seen Guardians of the Galaxy 3. When this video comes out, I assure you, I probably will still not have seen Guardians of the Galaxy 3. I might not be seeing that one in cinema. I haven't decided yet. But, maybe you've seen the film, maybe you haven't. Spoilers ahead. The film opens. Is that how I want to start this video? I I was blown away by the way this film opened. It was not what I expected, even slightly. I thought we were going to continue on with Miles Morales, and instead we get not a live action, a on-screen adaptation of Ghost Spider, which I, like, narratively that makes sense for Gwen Stacy. That is, the first Spider-Verse film gave us little hints of the original Spider-Gwen comic taking place in the background or like before this film, maybe even like right before this film. Peter Parker in Gwen Stacy's timeline had died after becoming the Lizard. Like, all that stuff had happened. But then I just wasn't expecting for them to jump straight to Ghost Spider. Although they don't call her Ghost Spider, which I love, because that name is kind of dumb. Just call her Spider-Woman. Miles Morales gets to be Spider-Man alongside Peter Parker, who is also Spider-Man. Just let Gwen Stacy be Spider-Woman alongside Jessica Drew. Because there's also a Spider-Girl. And there's all these other... Just let her be Spider-Woman. That's who she is. Her Peter Parker's dead anyway. Like, I'm sure there's no Jessica Drew in her timeline. Maybe there isn't. I haven't read enough comics. But just let her be Spider-Woman. It's weird that she's not allowed to be. Anyway, we start off with Ghost Spider in this really stylistic sequence. And it's not just a cold open either. It is a full story. We get this... I don't know how long it goes for, but it goes for a while. It's this full-on introductory, like, mini film, short film. There's a word for it, short film. It's a full-on short film at the beginning of the Spider-Verse film that tells the story of Gwen Stacy as Ghost Spider. Well, not as Ghost Spider, as Spider-Woman, but it's the Ghost Spider story. We even open up with, what's the band's name? The Mary Janes. I think that's what they're called. It's what they're called on this page here. They're the Mary Janes. We open up with them. I'm pretty sure that's who they were, because the lead singer was a redhead. But she was kind of compassionate, which tipped me off to her maybe not being Mary Jane, because Mary Jane in the Ghost Spider timeline is like kind of an asshole, but I don't know. But like we open up with the Mary Janes, we open up with Gwen rocking out and trying to forget everything. We see her inadvertently kill Peter Parker, which, like, I wasn't expecting to get to actually see that full scene. I thought what we saw in Spider-Verse was all we were going to see, but that's cool that we got to see that play out. And then we see her go about her day, and it just keeps going on, and it's so cool. And then just the way that it looked, the art was fantastic. I love that this film is artwork first and foremost, and then it's a film. Sure, they're telling their story, but they're telling their story through the medium of art, which was just, every single character that the characters that show up. We'll get to that in a minute, but like every single character looks so distinctively different from every other character. They use the art styles not only to signify that these are different characters, they use art styles from where these characters come from, just to signify that A, they're a different person, but also that's their history. That's it. You don't sit there going like, oh, is that? You know, because it's the original art style you would have seen that character from. So seeing the Spider-Gwen sequence in this like really brushed out, almost like digital watercolor style, like especially when it's like you get these character moments between Gwen Stacy and Captain Stacy, and they're standing there and the backgrounds become completely washed out. They're just blocks of colors, but you can still so easily tell where they are and like, what's happening around them. But because it's not the focus, because the focus is the characters, they completely, it's so stylistic, and it's taken from the comics. They don't go that far in the comics, especially not in the Spider-Gwen comics. In the Ghost Spider comics, I believe that style is specifically from the Spider-Gwen comics. I've not actually read Spider-Gwen. I thought this was Spider-Gwen when I bought it. I also thought this was Volume 1, but this is Volume 2, so I haven't even read Volume 1. And I thought I'd read Volume 3, but I haven't. I know what happens in the Spider-Gwen comics. I just haven't read them. So I don't know how she gets a symbiote in this either. That's just a thing for me. I need to go back and read some comics. Anyway, that style comes from the comic books, and seeing it on the big screen, seeing it animated, and it's so surreal. It's, you know, the Marvel films so often try to feel like a comic book has been. They try to feel like these moments that have been ripped out of comic books and thrown up onto the big screen. And sure, they do that sometimes. You know, you've got that moment in the Winter Soldier where Bucky punches the shield, or you've got that recreation of the Civil War panel in the Civil War film. But all of those feel kind of artificial. It feels like they're trying to do that. Whereas here, it feels tangible and real, because how else would you represent this? Because you've got this medium of animation, it lends itself to a really organic moment. These organic, what's the word I'm looking for? It's not fan service. It's organic illusion, maybe. I think that might be what I'm trying to describe here. But it's so cool. I got chills in the cinema. In fact, the only moments I really teared up were in that opening sequence, and it's because it was just so surreal seeing one of my favorite comic books just brought to life. That's what they're trying to do. They're trying to bring comic books to life, and they try to do that in the other Marvel films. They try to do that in the DC films, but I don't think they do it quite as well as the Spider-Verse films do. And I do think that Spider-Verse has an unfair advantage because it's animated, but still, Spider-Verse just so organically brings comics to life, and it's beautiful. What's my next note? So, I mentioned the characters before, and that was so cool. No, I was just every single time I looked at the screen, like when we get to Act 2 and we're in what's it called? Is it New York or wherever Miguel comes from, that place, the city, and you've got all the Spider-Men and all the Spider people, and like every single frame of the screen, there's like 100 Spider-Men on the screen, and that sounds like an exaggeration, and it is, but it's not that far off from what it really was. And it's just, I spent those scenes scanning every millimeter of the screen for who was showing up. And I don't think I saw everyone, but I found it so surprising how much time they gave me to see like a fair amount of the people that were on there. Like there was so many, and They weren't just random either. That was the cool thing. I kept being blown away by how many familiar Spider-Men were on there. I know we saw it in the trailers, but I don't think the trailers even began to show us just how many were going to show up. You've got things like, what's the Spider-Man? Oh, I'm Googling this. What was his name? No, isn't he called like the Lonesome Spider or something? He is called that. He is called Webslinger in the credits. Yeah, actually, so no, that Webslinger. The Webslinger, I think of all the Spider characters, Webslinger is a character I expected to show up with his horse and everything, but I wasn't expecting him to get a voice. I thought that was cool. And Spider-Man PS4 shows up. That was just cool. It was just a cool moment. And like it's fan service, but I like it. In fact, Spider-Man PS4 shows up twice, which is weird. Because the first time he shows up, Genki is playing Spider-Man PS4. Or actually, no, he's playing it on a DualSense. He's got a DualSense controller, so he's playing it on PS5. So in Miles' universe, the Spider-Man game exists, but then also that Spider-Man is a real character who shows up in this film, I think twice even. So I don't know. And the original animated Spider-Man shows up. Which is not the first time. He's already showed up in the Spider-Verse film, but he showed up again, and he had a funny little moment. I liked that. Who else do we get? There is so many to go through that I think I need to watch the film again and actually make a list of who shows up before I can do this, because I've already forgotten so many that showed up. But the Spectacular Spider-Man showed up. That was cool. Ben Reilly shows up, and he was just funny. He's voiced by Andy Samberg. Andy Samberg did a great job. I was laughing out loud in the cinema every single time he showed up on screen, and he wasn't even doing much. It was just watching him play this overdramatic Ben Reilly moping around against a wall. I found that hilarious, and I laughed quite loud. Obviously, we get Miguel, Spider-Man 2099. Where is he? I've got him. This guy, he shows up. He's in the film for a bit. He's voiced by Oscar Isaac. He's great. We'll come back to him because I've got large thoughts, big thoughts, huge thoughts about that guy. Not huge thoughts, just a couple of thoughts. I had this big list of all the Spider people that showed up, and now I'm kind of forgetting them all. Spider UK showed up. She was the first one. Well, actually, no, Jessica Drew is the first one, I think. No, Miguel's the first one, then Jessica Drew. Jessica Drew is great. Love that interpretation of Jessica Drew. That's it. That's all I got to say. Jessica Drew was fantastic. They kind of forget the whole she's pregnant thing. But yeah, that was cool. It was cool. I believe, I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure. What's the game called? Is it Spider-Man Edge of Time? No, Web of Shadows. There were so many just flying around. The first vulture that appears, that was cool. I think that was the first indicator we got that this film was going to take the art style of the first film and just expand exponentially upon that idea. But then a couple of really cool ones were the live action characters that showed up. I think there are actually more than got voiced. So you get the old woman at the end of the Venom film. She showed up in this, which I don't care for because the Venom films were really, 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 really bad. I haven't seen the second one, but it looks really, 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 really bad. But you know, like it was just oh hey, cool. That's they did live action and animated. Didn't expect that. That's new. Same with the whole Lego thing. Didn't expect that. J.K. Simmons was in the Lego one too. That was cool. But the really cool live action moment was when Donald Glover showed up as the Prowler. I don't even expect we're going to get that in the MCU. So to get that here in Spider-Verse, that was awesome. It did feel a little bit like them saying, hey, this isn't happening in the MCU. Kind of like when you get Reed Richards played by... what's his name? John Krasinski. When John Krasinski showed up as Reed Richards in Doctor Strange, that felt to me like them going, yeah, like here's your like fan servicey moment, but we're not gonna do this in the MCU. And I hope that they don't, because I think they can do better. But it did kind of feel like having Donald Glover in this film either feels like them confirming he will be the Prowler in the MCU, or saying, hey, here's your moment, but we ain't gonna do this moving on. This is just a moment for you, and then we're done with that. I don't know how much I really care though, because I've not been keeping up to date the MCU. As I say, lots and lots of characters appear in this. I was just really, really excited and shocked. I expect when this film comes out on a streaming platform or digitally, I'm going to be watching it back frame by frame just to see how many people showed up. I even want to go and see this film again, just for that, just to see who showed up, because there was so many. I've immediately forgotten so many names, but I saw so many faces and was excited every single time. There was a T-Rex Spider-Man. And beyond the art style, the other thing that they did to really signify that each Spider-Person was a different Spider-Person was the sound design, which was insane. I noticed it like right from the beginning. The Spider-Gwen sequence has beautiful sound design. The music is great, and I'm loving it. I didn't love the whole like Gwen's voice coming from multiple places in the surround system. It didn't work for me in the theater. I think it'll work for me better at home, either with my speakers or headphones in. But in the cinema, I could not understand what she was saying, and I didn't like that as much. But like once they got past that and they were just doing stuff, like the music was fantastic and all that other stuff was fantastic. When Miguel first shows up, they're like, you get this like futuristic you get this like, it's weird to say this about a Spider-Man film. You get this like real Blade Runner moment with him, and like the theme behind it is like really Blade Runner, and it's cool. It makes him threatening, but it also signifies that it makes him threatening, but it also solidifies that he's just not from the same place as all these other spider people. There's a reason that he's different, and it's that he, A, isn't a Peter Parker or a stand-in for Peter Parker, and B, he's from a completely different time to everyone else here. And then, like Miles Morales has fantastic music, as with the first film. That's nothing new. No one's surprised by that. I loved that we kept getting different audio cues for every single character. I loved the way that the soundtrack was constantly evolving, just like the art style. The way that those two things mimicked each other, like the ears and the eyes are mimicking each other, it was fantastic. I loved every second of it. And then there is a specific musical moment that I want to talk about, because this is a horror channel, and I need to talk about things that are horror. This is so not horror, but there is one moment at the end of the film when you've got Gwen Stacy outside of Miles Morales' room, and Miles Morales is in his room revealing to the person he thinks is his mother that he is Spider-Man. You get that big dramatic swell of I'm Spider-Man, Mum. Are you gonna love me? Are you gonna accept me? And then it cuts, and you immediately know something's wrong. And you've seen that Spider-Woman is outside, like Gwen Stacy's outside, and she's hearing all this. She's just had that conversation with her dad, so you think that she's staying outside and letting this happen because she's waiting for Miles to do the same thing to save his father. But then the music cuts, and there's sudden tension in the room, and you don't know what that tension is. And Gwen starts to move into the room, which you think she's going in to resolve it, but she's not, because she's going into a completely different room. Miles is in the wrong reality, which I knew, because I saw the number 42 appear on the screen. I was like, that's not his reality. It's like, I saw that coming, but still, when it happens, it stings. It's kind of creepy, but that's not the horror moment. The horror moment is Gwen finding out. Miles finds out, and it's like, oh no. But when Gwen finds out, when Gwen goes into his room and suddenly that silence is broken by this eerie, high-pitched swelling in the background. It's almost like a horror synth in the background, because that is what they're drawing from. They're drawing from horror in that moment. Also, sorry, there's going to be sounds from behind me. I'm not home alone right now like I usually am. Again, completely different kind of video to what I normally do. Back to this. You get this almost like horror synth in the background as Gwen realizes what's happening. And it had me on the edge of my seat. It was some of the best horror I've seen in a while. That's not true. Is it true? It's up there. It's good horror. I think this channel is a testament to the fact that I find horror in some of the weirdest places. But like that's what that was. That was everything that we do in horror. It's building up tension. And when you think we're going to release it, holding back a few moments so that we can release it slowly afterwards, really drag out the pain that tension is meant to create. And it was so good. I loved that scene. And it did then come into a place, into a thing that I kind of disliked about this film. We'll touch on that in a moment, but I do have one complaint about the film, but I want to keep talking about the things that I really liked first. So let's talk about something else. As I was leaving the cinema, I was saying to myself, wow, 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 oh my gods, wow. But I was sitting next to someone in the cinema, and as I was walking out, I overheard their conversation where they turned to their partner and they said, so what did you think? And they went, yeah, like it was pretty good. But I hate two-parters. And I agree. Two-parter films suck, but this is something a little bit different for me. Because yes, the film does end on that sort of cliffhanger that like, hey, we'll touch on this in the next film moment, but I don't think that it is a unfinished story, so to say. It's not like what's not Harry Potter? Mockingbird, Hunger Games. The first Hunger Games film. The first Mockingjay film. Is it Mockingjay? Mockingbird. The first Mockingbird film ends at a point where you're like, okay, well, now we'll continue in part 2. And so part 1 and part 2, they don't feel like complete films because they really rely on the next... They really rely on each other to tell the whole story. And that was kind of lame, especially because, I just broke a button. Oh, no. But especially because in the book, like, yes, it's separated by part 1 and part 2, but it's a lot quicker. This doesn't feel like that for me because this wasn't trying to complete Miles' story. And I think that that's what they were talking about. This idea that we finish at a point where Miles' story isn't finished, and that's a little bit unsatisfying. But Gwen's story was finished, and that's the story we were telling here. We open with Gwen, and I don't think that was just a, like, hey, let's tell Gwen's backstory for a bit. That was absolutely intentional. This is Gwen's story, and it's solidified at multiple points throughout the story. You know, like, there's all this focus on Gwen. Like, we certainly take a break from Gwen for a bit and focus on Miles and see what he's up to, but we keep coming back to Gwen. Everything that happens in this film happens because of her actions, her decisions. And even like, in the 2099 part, there's that moment where they talk about Spider-Man constantly has to try to save a captain who ends up dying because of his actions, and it's part of the canon, which is what they say in the film. But like most of the Spider-Man they show, I believe, are all Spider-Man that have Captain Stacy die. So like, it's that focus on Captain Stacy. Even like they show Andrew Garfield with Captain Stacy dead, and Presumably Peter B. Parker's was also Captain Stacy, because Gwen Stacy, I believe it appears in his universe in the first film. I believe that happens. But it's that it was weird at first to me that they focused so hard on Gwen Stacy's dad, like Captain Stacy, because I didn't think that was such an integral moment for all Spider-Men. It's not like a Uncle Ben dying. It's not like a Gwen Stacy dying in the clock tower. It's not like any of that. It was this weird moment that does happen a lot, but I didn't think it always happens, and it's because it doesn't. But we'll get to that part in a moment. But we keep coming back to Gwen Stacy and her story. It's because it's her story. So by the end of the film, we get that moment with Gwen Stacy and her dad, where we find out that he actually didn't go on a rampage of trying to catch the Spider-Woman or find his daughter or reveal her identity to the world. Instead, halfway through her speech to him in the beginning of the film, when she told him that she is Spider-Woman, he decided he was going to quit the Force. I got cut off. Apparently, my camera has a maximum movie recording length, which is half an hour. We've been talking for a little while. Anyway, so yes, he did try to arrest her. I think that was a shock response, but we find out later on that the thing that really broke him was that his daughter left and that he couldn't be there for her. He quit the Force and he just wanted to have his daughter. And I think that was, for me, that felt like that was where the film was going to end. And again, that's coming back to my point that I disliked about this, that the film kept ending. At the end of the film, there's like 5 moments where there's this big musical swell, and it's a big dramatic moment, and a character's like walking through a door or a portal, and you're like, yeah, you're going to zoom in on them, and then the film's going to end. And that character is always Gwen Stacy. And it just kept happening, which kind of undermined the real ending for me, but it's not a hard sell moment, because I did really like the real ending. I don't know, it was weird that it kept happening. But again, I just don't feel like this was a incomplete 2-part story that didn't need to be 2 parts. I think this is 2 different films, and I think they made the right decision by not calling this Across the Spider-Verse Part 1 and Part 2. I think they do at the end of the film in the credits, or they do like a to be continued thing. But like, I think that they made the right decision in the marketing by taking out the Part 1 and Part 2 thing. I think the biggest mistake they made was initially announcing this as Part 1. Because if we never got that, I don't think we would be having this discussion of whether this needed to be a Part 1 and Part 2. And I'm looking forward to Part 2 of the story being Miles' story, because that's thematically where we're at. We're now on to Miles. Miles has to learn the lesson that Gwen just learned, and I believe she's going to be the one to teach him. That's kind of what we did in Spider-Verse already, with Peter B. Parker. But, I trust them. They're going to do some interesting stuff, and I think that'll still be a great film. Miguel was great. I really, really liked him. I like that they don't call him Spider-Man 2099, because it's kind of dumb. They just call him Miguel, and I thought it was awesome. He's not like 100% comics accurate. In the comics, at least, he's trying to become a better person. But in this, he's still not a better person. But I like that. I like this version of Miguel that is a broken and scared Spider-Man. A Spider-Man that has made some mistakes and is unwilling to accept that those mistakes are his. So we see in this film that Miguel is projecting a lot. He's projected this idea onto like all of the other Spider-Men that the mistakes he made and the unfortunate luck that he had are events that need to happen for every single Spider-Man, because this is the canon. But the truth is that he just messed up and had some pretty bad luck, and some bad things happened. But they don't need to continue happening for every other Spider-Man, but he's not ready to accept that, and I think that that's what the next film's going to be about. I'm really looking forward to the confrontation of Gwen and Miles against Miguel. I'm really interested to see what that conversation is going to be like, because I don't think that this next film can end in a big climactic fight. I think it can only end in a conversation between the three of them. I think that this film did a really good job of showing the flaws in Miguel's ideology. I've already mentioned that, you've got the Captain Stacy thing, but what I haven't mentioned is that it's not quite true. Yes, it is pretty often that Spider-Man is close with a police captain and that police captain dies, but it doesn't happen in every reality, just like how Spider-Man doesn't date Gwen Stacy in every reality, and Spider-Man doesn't date Mary Jane in every reality, and Gwen Stacy doesn't fall from a clock tower and die in every single reality. For instance, Spider-Man PS4 doesn't seem to have a Gwen Stacy. He's in this, and that seems like a pretty big canon moment to me, but it doesn't happen for that Spider-Man. Not to mention that Spider-Man has a police captain who hasn't died. Is her name Yuri? I'm not going to Google it. Whatever her name was, she's alive in the Spider-Man games. Yes, she's alive. Greg Davies dies in the game. A police captain close to Spider-Man doesn't die in the Spider-Man games. Miles Morales' dad dies, but that's because that just has to happen. So already we see the flaw in Miguel's ideology, and I like that they weave in little moments like that. And I don't think that is them not thinking about it. I think it's very deliberate. Especially because we get the whole revelation at the end that the one Captain Stacy that doesn't die is the one in which his daughter is Spider-Woman, and he steps down from being a police captain. And I think we're about to see the same thing with Miles Morales and his dad. I'm just really interested by that. I think it's a cool interpretation of Miguel, and I think it sets him up to be a really interesting character moving forward if they want to keep doing these films. I'd love to see a Spider-Man 2099 film. That I hope that the beginning of this film was just a test run to see if we would like a Spider-Gwen film, because I want that. I want a whole film in that style. I thought it was fantastic. I want more of it. I need more of it. Need it. I think that's all my thoughts for the moment. The only other thought I had was that I really liked that Gwen has a trans rights banner above her door, and Miles has a BLM sticker on his a BLM badge on his bag. First of all, great little let's do this. But the other thing I liked about that, I found it strange that this is what I thought about in the cinema, was that it made me feel like this is a real world, because I see those and it's like, oh, they've got movements, they've got struggles, they've got real people in this world. It made the worlds they exist in feel alive. Obviously you can, it's them trying to appeal to people and trans folk like myself, and go hey, look, we're cool and young and hip and woke. I hate that word. But I do feel like, whether intentional or not, it was them fleshing out these worlds as real places. And hi, I have a couple more thoughts about this. I'm editing at the moment, and something that kind of went over my head when I was initially watching this film, because I was so distracted by the art style and the Ghost Spider representation, I completely missed that Gwen's story is just straight up a trans story. And I'm bewildered by the fact that I saw the Protect Trans Kids banner in her room, and I still didn't piece it together that, oh, they're telling a trans story with Gwen. You've got the whole struggle of identity between her and her father trying to accept her for who she is, and it's all this big allegory. Even something that I missed was Captain Stacy has a trans pride flag on his uniform, which that's a cool little thing. I want to compile some more thorough thoughts about this. It may be a video essay, it may be a very, very long tweet, maybe I'll write a thing on my blog. I don't know. I want to talk at length about not just how incredible it is to have a trans Gwen Stacy in the Spider-Verse films, but also how the Spider-Gwen character makes sense for a trans character. Um, I want to go into that somewhere else, not here, but I needed to at least mention this because I think it's really important. Anyway, back to this. I keep just ending on, and I really liked that, but that's what this video is. I really liked that. I really like this film, man. It was so cool. It was just, oh, it was fantastic. I that's why I made this channel, to talk about media that I really like, to explode like this in front of a camera. And I like the really long scripted stuff that I do, but it takes a while. I'm currently working on a new one. I'm not ready to announce what it is, but I'm quite excited about that. I think, how long is that one? Is it going to be a long video or is it going to be a short video? Yeah, we're at 3,500 words. I think I got another 800 in me or so probably a regular sized video. I think it's going to be fun, but this is also pretty fun. I like ranting like this. So I hope you've enjoyed. I hope you've seen the film. If you have, do talk to me in the comments about what you think, because I want to talk about this forever. Do you like this? Is this cool? Is this fun? I'm gonna watch this back like tomorrow or the day after and edit this video. So like maybe I don't like this and this doesn't come out, but if it does, do you want more of this sort of stuff? Because I can do this. I would love to keep doing stuff like this. Let me know. Anyway, I've been Sapphire. I'm going to be thinking about this all night. Wow. Wow.